Human beings are not necessarily creatures who go out and fight wars as part of normal everyday life. Paying a man or woman a wage well below the rate paid to traffic wardens, office managers, and other occupations does not motivate them to fight instinctively in a combat situation. If money is not the motivation, how do people instinctively and purposely fight wars as if it's the perfectly natural thing to do? In order to get men or women to fight, you've got to speak to the soul. You've got to train the inside. You have to change the way that people would normally operate. In order to try and explain this, let's look at a recruit's first few days in the military. Firstly, 25 to 30 individuals arrive at camp in a bus, all with their own ideals and conception of military life. All are typical civilians, a range of haircuts, some long, some short, some styled. All individually identified by a range of clothing and styles. The second they get off the bus, they are immediately yelled and screamed at, dragged into rough formation and marched everywhere, even to the toilet block. Every step taken from now on will be in regimental fashion. During the next 24 hours, everyone has haircuts. Everyone the same. All former identity is removed. Now we have 25 to 30 individuals, all looking the same, all with short hair. All civilian clothing is stored away in bags or cases, and military uniform is issued. Everything is issued. Everything's included, down to socks and underwear. From this point on, individuals wear what they're told, when they're told. Each individual is given a number which will follow them through military service. They are now referred to by their surname only. Each individual is given the rank of recruit. At this point, they are the lowest of the low. Even the commanding officer's dog is more important than a recruit. Over the next couple of days, on the basis that a good night's sleep is necessary, it'll be lights out at 10 and up at 6. In these 8 hours allegedly allocated for sleeping, boots are bulled, kit is pressed, practice takes place, and the block's made ready for inspection next morning. Minimal sleep actually takes place. It's 6 a.m. and the nice lady comes round with the tea trolley, rousing everyone with a gentle nudge and a nice cuppa. That'd be nice. The reality is that the lights are on, the doors are banged, dustbin lids are banged, everyone is rudely and aggressively woken. There is a reason for being aggressively woken, and this should become apparent later. Oversleep when you're violently thrown out of bed or your bed's upended. Now the day starts. There's no rest during the day. So what is actually happening? Let's look at the training, let's look at conditioning, let's look at brainwashing, call it what you will. In order to do this, we need to look at the normal human flight and fight response. Think of a rabbit caught in the spotlights. In fear, it freezes, confused by the blinding lights, which is a perfectly normal stress response. It's a good job we don't send rabbits to war. As humans, our normal instinctive reaction when confronted by something totally out of the blue is stop dead and freeze. This normal human response is no good in a wartime situation. If the cost of training someone in the military is 40, 50, 60,000 pounds, and we've sent you into battle acting in the normal human way, to freeze and be killed at the first sign of battle, then every penny spent on training will have been a total waste. Therefore, the logical conclusion is that your flight and fight response needs to be changed, so that you no longer act or react in what would be the normal, natural human way. Let's look at recruit training. Over the next 3 months, you're taught drill actions in the stationary standing position, e.g. attention, stand at ease. One single unified movement. You're taught to react to aggressive, shout aloud commands, repetitively, time and time again, until it happens without thought, instinctively. Again, without actually moving from the spot, you're taught to turn left, then right. This consists of several movements by numbers, by repetitive, aggressive, loud commands until again it becomes instinctive. Following stationary drill, we teach movements on the march, again through repetition and by numbers, using aggressive, loud commands until again this becomes instinctive. During this time, there's an introduction to food, rations and weapon handling. Weapon handling is taught using the same repetitive, aggressive manner until this becomes instinctive and perfectly natural. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Instinctive, 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 without thought. Penalties. If it's not done right, you're punished. Firstly, the individual is punished, both physically and verbally, and if a persistent offender, the whole squad is punished. Then the whole squad punish the individual. Therefore, discipline and peer punishment are used. If you don't toe the line, you're punished by your mates. This is reinforced over and over again. All of this leads to automatic instinctive mode, so that as soon as a command is shouted, you will do it immediately. At the end of all this, there is a reward. Passing out parade, pay increase, short period of leave. A parade takes place in front of civilians, families, etc., who are now seen to be lower than you, because you are now something special. This has been instilled in you. You are becoming the best of the best. Following this, further training pursues. As an example, infantry training, during which contact drills are taught. Again, repetition, repetition, repetition. As an example, the immediate action on the firing of a shot. The minute a shot rings out, run towards it. Get down, crawl, observe, aim, fire. How do we get people to do this? Who would normally, naturally, instinctively run towards shots being fired at them? Again, an automatic series of responses. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Training with simulated weapon fire, thunder flashes, mock explosions, blank firing. The minute it begins, you go into a sequence of automatic responses. Practice it over and over again. Shot rings out, run forwards, get down, crawl, observe, aim, fire. Practiced over and over again. At the end of this, it becomes totally instinctive, automatic. You are hyper vigilant. You're waiting for it to happen. You're extra alert. Imagine the following. As a civilian, you hear a noise in the distance. You hear loud shouting voices. Around the corner comes an angry mob. I would suggest that the normal human reaction is to stop, look, make a decision to get out of the way to safety, run away. The military rule in an ambush or this type of situation is to face towards it and assault through it. You have to train a soldier to work towards the mob. Is that normal? Your whole body is saying get away, but the soldier has to be trained to go through that. The result of this training and conditioning, after 6 months, sometimes less, repetitive training, the flight button has been removed. Flight is no longer an option. This brings us to peacetime. In peacetime, soldiers can't fight all the time, so just like a video recorder, they're programmed to be on standby, so that when a certain set of circumstances occur, they immediately react. The rest of this time, they're hyper-vigilant, hyper-alert. Having now completed training, the reward system swings into action again. Another parade in front of civilians, to whom you're now superior, your unit badge is presented. Pride, you now believe you are the greatest, the most efficient, and the smartest in the world. We have now taken individuals, turned them into trained, disciplined fighting machines, and trained them to be on standby, again like the video recorder, so that when a certain set of circumstances occur, or a particular button is pressed, they automatically react instinctively. Right at the top of their mind is a stress or standby button, which now becomes an anger button. It has to be an anger button so that they are ready to explode into action. They are at a higher level of alertness, switched on but not fighting. Then they're sent off to war. Immediately they're faced with a high level of stressors, such as landmines, snipers, weapons being fired around them and at them, and they respond instinctively without thought, just as they have been trained. This is where hate comes in. Hate is the emotion that will fire up the anger, that will release the adrenaline, that will let you fight. Think of the names used for enemies we fought over the years. We don't fight Fred or Bill from round the corner. The Hun, the Bosch, ITAI, RG, WAP, Kraut, NIP, Al-Qaeda, terrorist scum, butchers, murderers, rapists. Each name carries with it an inbuilt picture, fostering images of evil forces as the battle rages. Hating the enemy is necessary because hate allows you to kill. The realities of war. What's war about? There are no halfway measures in war. It's not about elimination. It's not about winning. It is not about gently rounding up the opposition and taking prisoners. The bottom line is war is about killing. You kill them, or they kill you. You can't hit the adrenaline if you don't have the anger and the hate. To hate, again, think of the names we give the enemy and the images that they create within your own mind. So we teach you the anger and then teach you the skills instinctively, so that when you get angry, you fight. You explode into anger. This button can be pressed many times in one day, let alone 1 week or 1 month. Again, there is a reward at all stages. This time it's not about parades. The ultimate reward in this case, the proof of a job well done, the proof that I have done my job properly, is the fact that I am still standing here. Survival. The ultimate proof of my skills is I am still alive. I did my job well and survived. To recap, we've taken an individual and trained him to be hyper-vigilant and extra alert, always on standby, and to act automatically and instinctively when a certain set of circumstances occur. We've sent this individual to war, and he has survived. If the reward for war is to survive with your life, then you develop the inbuilt belief that you are the best in the world, and make the direct connection between survival and training, believing that it is an absolutely brilliant system because it saves your life. The normal pre-military belief system and stress responses have been removed and replaced with a new set of values and actions. Military service has ended, and now you re-enter civilian life. You are still switched on, you're still on standby, but now you are a civilian. You still carry the inbuilt ability to fire up, act and react instinctively, and explode into action without thought when threatened in any manner or under loud aggressive circumstances. Inside is a set of responses programmed into you that tell you, when I reach a certain point, I know exactly what to do. It is perfectly natural, perfectly normal, it's instinctive. If it's what I did in the military, it's how I have been taught to live, and having been rewarded for it, it is perfectly acceptable. The brain tells me, I'm under pressure, therefore I know what to do. When I get angry, explode. A totally over-the-top reaction, which was perfectly acceptable in a wartime environment. The military system is pretty smart. They recognise that if they're going to train an individual to act and react in this manner, then they cannot have you act in this manner back at camp or in Civvy Street. They need to teach you how to unwind and relax. Through history, two things have always been cheaply available in military life. In most places, they are available at a discount, duty free, and in some situations they have been provided free of charge. One is a depressant, alcohol. The other a stimulant, cigarettes. Whilst training, or after an exercise, or at the end of a combat operation, there's always an informal form of debrief in the mess, in the pub, or stopping off on the flight back for R&R to relax and unwind using alcohol and cigarettes. Therefore, the individual is already starting to learn how to cope after situations by self-medicating. In order to control how I feel, if I use alcohol, it will suppress it. An alternative way, if not using alcohol or nicotine, is to become a workaholic. Always active, always working, never resting, never relaxing. This seems to put a cap on stress levels, believing that alcohol, etc., puts a lid on it and controls it. Unfortunately, this cap will destroy the individual, if not in full-blown alcoholism, etc., then through anger, aggression, and rage. This problem appears later in life as the body and mind age, which is why symptoms present many years after military service. War is fought by young men and women full of adrenaline and testosterone. As we age, the capacity to handle those sorts of pressures decrease. The tensions and stressors are still there, but the aging process means that the body and mind are not capable of handling them as they once did. At some stage, which can be different in each individual, the point is reached where pressure and age meet and the pressure breaks through. This is simply because you've reached the point where your body and age are no longer able to suppress the pressure. Individuals reach this point at some stage. It's not going away because it is trained and conditioned into them. In the civilian system, it's flexible, little discipline, shades of grey, choice, yes, no, maybe. In the military system, it's rigid, high discipline, black and white, no choice, and the answer is always yes. The flexible civilian culture meeting the rigid military culture results in conflict. They are two totally different cultures. The way to measure this as an ex-serviceman and recognise that the military system is no longer working is when the system overflows in civilian life so much that the conflict becomes almost equal to being at war. It must be powerful enough to trigger something telling you that this is no longer working. The result? Anxiety, depression, maybe PTSD, low self-esteem, isolation, lack of confidence. The options range from suicide to explosion, addiction, or anywhere in between. Emotional numbing comes into place. As survival skills, emotions are turned off. If I have no feelings, I cannot be hurt. These are not survival skills for civilian life. So how can it be dealt with? Drug therapy, antidepressants, etc. The purpose of an antidepressant is simple. It puts a cap on it. Medication does not fix the problem. It simply caps it, making the tension harder to break through. Learning relaxation and breathing techniques to release the pressure and bring below the explosion point. War cannot be totally eradicated from the mind, but the manner of dealing with it can be learned. So, drug therapy, talk therapy through one-to-one counselling or group peers, relaxation techniques, communication skills, conflict resolution through anger management, goal setting, motivation, self-image, self-talk through peer mentoring, time management, education courses, etc. Any form of learning skill can be used to break down pressure. Before you can use them, you need to learn them. If you can learn to use them well, you start to break down and weaken the original training and aggressive behaviours. These were aggressive behaviours for war, they're not behaviours for civilian life. Replace the aggressive skills from before with the necessary skills for life. As these skills increase, the pressure from service life, experiences and conditioning will decrease. It's about finding the balance. Mild medication may in some cases always be necessary. The way to live a life in civilian street after military service should be based on the same principles learned in basic training. Service personnel were trained to act and react instinctively to situations. To redress this balance over time and reduce the levels of conditioning and aggressive behaviour will take time and education. Call it retraining if you like. Just as military training taught them to live, then services need to be provided to teach them how to live as civilians and integrate into society. Money was spent training them to live a life fighting for this nation, and ways should be found to finance training, education and support groups to empower them to live the active civilian lives they now deserve. Most of these tools and programs already exist. They just need adapting to suit the needs